I'm an IT guy, so I spend most of my days turning stuff off and back on again. I work only with schools. I had a real job before this. I was selling iPads into schools, and my trick was I'd go in with my box iPads, I'd land in front of you, and I'd make the iPads dance. They'd do the most amazing things. And then I'd go, see, there you go, that's what you want for your school, I'm gone. Now I went back, I'd visit the schools again because you have to, how are you getting on with your iPads and that kind of thing. And I'd see the box in the corner, and I'd go, why aren't you using them? What's the story there? And these were expensive. I was very good at my job. Aren't you using them? And they'd say, well, and you know all the excuses. The education centre wasn't running courses at the time. We don't have anybody who knows how to use them. We were afraid to turn them on in case we broke them. We don't have Wi-Fi in our school. We don't have lesson plans. So we don't have, and it was all negative, negative, negative. So I started looking at this from an outsider. So from a computational thinking point of view, just to keep in today's theme, I saw the problem and I just took a step back. And where are my issues? I have iPads, I have eager teachers, but why aren't they using them? So I went to schools and I said, do you know what, I'm going to approach schools and I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you, or I'm going to help your teachers embrace technology more effectively, and more importantly, embrace the technology they have in the classroom more effectively. So, when I go into a school, I'm generally the invisible person. You don't see me. I don't want to be seen. You guys are the heroes. You're in front. You're dealing with the students every single day. The problem is that you go away to something as amazing as this. I was looking at an overview of the course, and to be honest, I was looking at it going, oh, I'd love to do that. I do know coding. I do coding, but I'm not a coder. I have an understanding of it, but to teach it and break it down, watching the stuff that you're doing kind of brought it back to me going, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing this. This is, it gives such a breadth to be able to break something down. A big fear that I'm not a coder, therefore I can't teach coding. But that's not the case. It's not the case at all. I'm not a runner, but I could show you how to run if I can break it down. And this is what this course does. It breaks it down really nicely. So, as a person who's invisible, you go away and you go away to something like this, and then you come back to me, I'm in the school, and you knock on my door, and I don't know if you've spotted it or if you're going for lunch. Look in, there's a door 2 doors down on the right hand side in here, and it's a mass of cables and computers and computer bits. That's where I live. Right? That's my natural environment. So the teacher would come up knocking on the door and going, I want to do this. I'm just after learning about microbits, and we're starting the course next week. And I go, okay, when next week? So they say, I'm starting the course on Monday with my students. So I have to ask a few questions. How many students? The device you're bringing into school to teach, does it need to be connected to a computer? If it does need to be connected to a computer, is it something that's connected and disconnected? So will a student be connecting it and disconnecting it? Is there software that needs to be installed on the computer? Does the software that's going to be installed, does it require permissions? How many IT coordinators here? And how many people just look after the IT? Cool. And so you guys get called if there's any sort of a problem. Is that about right?
If you're teaching computers to do the second learning term, and then if another technician comes in on Mondays, if it's a serious one.
Okay, cool. So, is there anybody here who's the go-to person in school? Do you know?
We can be sometimes, but I suppose from an education point of view, it's become more difficult. I was working in a learning support role, and there were times maybe where students were out, it allowed more flexibility. Now I'm in primary, but I've been in mainstream now for the last 3 or 4 years, so I suppose the ability to instantly fix a 2-minute problem I don't have that ability anymore kind of a thing. So it leads to a kind of a waiting game. So what we do now is we kind of have a guy that comes in every so often to look after a bigger number of things and try and prevent situations from happening rather than trying to crisis fix on the spot, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly, I just looked down at my notes there, that's exactly what I'm going on to next. How do you deal with problems that arise in your school? I'd like this session to be a discussion. I love what I do, guys. I'm genuine. I'm one of the lucky people that has found a job that they love. So I'll ramble on about this topic forever. So stop me. It's not about me. It's about you guys discussing between yourselves the problems that arise in your school. Before I move on to that, you mentioned something about people come to me if there's a 2-minute fix for problems. There's no 2-minute fix. That is my bugbear, where I'll walk into a school on a Tuesday and I'll get corridor hijacked. So my bag's on my back, my jacket's in my bag, and I just step into the school and like that. You wouldn't mind looking at the projector, it's a 2-minute job. You wouldn't mind looking at the mouse, it's a 3-minute job. You'll have it done in no time. I have a problem in the computer room and it goes on before I've even reached my little cave down at the bottom of the school. There's no such thing as a 2-minute problem. So you have to eliminate that altogether, and that comes with education. So put it in your staff room, a notice board, a nice little, just small sheet of paper. There's no such thing as a 2-minute problem. Okay? So report your problems, have a list of them. It's up to the technician or the person fixing it to go, it's a 2-minute problem, not the person reporting the problem. I remember telling my dad, he's a surgeon, this is my problem, is people are coming up to me going, it's a 2-minute problem. He said, well, people come up with an eye surgery question and go, yeah, it's a 2-minute fix. It's not a 2-minute fix. It's up to the person doing the job. And my point is, there's no such thing as a 2-minute problem. So don't put yourself under pressure. The next thing you mentioned, which is very, very valid, is the firefighting versus the fixing groups of problems. The problem with your 2-minute problem is it escalates into firefighting. So if you're the IT coordinator, the IT person, the IT helper, or whatever, all of a sudden, your 2-minute job turns into another 2-minute job, turns into another 2-minute job, and that's complicated. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 means you're not an IT coordinator anymore. So, when you, with all the knowledge you've acquired, and you go back to your school, and I was reading through some of the submissions there for knowing your environment. This is about knowing your environment. So we're going to take 5 minutes, and I've read through some of your submissions. I'm not going to mention names, I'm not going to embarrass any people, but I've taken a couple of points out of them just so I can relay them to you. But before I do, I want you to take 5 minutes and turn around in groups and discuss with the person in your group the 3 biggest problems you have. And you have 5 minutes starting now. And it can be anything, lads, just the 3 biggest problems. Judging by the hum in the room, there's a few problems discussed on a regular basis. So can I pick somebody from this line here and tell us what's your worst part, the most reoccurring thing, your bugbear?
I think teachers are not responsible for the equipment. There's too many teachers using the room.
Okay.
And therefore it comes back to the computer teacher that might just teach 2 or 3 classes a week, and they just go in, if it's plugged out. It's a general classroom. It needs to be a specific classroom for IT only.
Okay, so you think a computer room is, come on. You think the computer room just for IT only, kind of like, is anybody here doing DCG for your primary? Sorry, so the DCG room is the specialist room. Nobody goes in there other than DCG people. So you reckon computers should be the same as that? Okay, cool. What I do in some of the schools that I'm in is I attach responsibility. If you're using the computer room, you're responsible of it. So the next person that comes into the computer room, the next teacher, if I'm in computer room now, At 12:30, the person that's in after me does a quick check. So every student logs in. If a student can't log in because there's no internet or the monitor won't turn on, I mark down that student and I'll go back. I don't go to the technician, I go to the last teacher that was there.
Can I interrupt you on that?
Yeah.
Our problem with that is a teacher might bring in a class group of 10 and
Yeah.
say they didn't use the other 20 machines.
Again, I fix that by, if you're in, you don't randomly, you know how students are great in that they'll walk into a classroom and they'll find the deepest, darkest corner, and that's where they'll go to. So in some of my computer rooms, I'd have a U-shaped kind of job with the front door you walk in, and there's computers down here, down the back, this way. Students tend to gravitate towards the back of the room. I'll always say, if you have 10, and it's up to the teacher to take responsibility. I know I'll probably get shot down for this now, and I'd never say it in a staff room. But it's up to the teacher to take responsibility. If you have 10 students and there's 20 computers, you line them up here. You don't let them sit randomly. It's a classroom management thing, where you kind of like you're assigned a desk. You have to, it's the only way to, if you have it at random, is that okay? Is there anybody else? Okay, I can, has anybody else come across that sort of problem? Say. Oh, okay. It's never the technician's fault, by the way. Never the technician's fault. Of course it is. But the environment is very hard for a technician to work in. I know myself, the environment is very, there are schools I go to, and I'm not afraid to say this because you have to learn from the work. There's one school I go to, I had to go back to the principal and say, it's still a job. I can't issues, and of course straight away you're approaching, when you're dealing with the problem, you're pushing it away from yourself. And so I would approach it, and I straight away I say, well, the issues aren't being reported to me, and I'm not getting the emails about the issues, and I'm being, that's not the case. The problem is issues aren't getting sorted. A solution to that problem is to bring in more than one technician on a particular day, or assign a group of technicians, or assign some way that teachers, by clicking a button, do an issue on a computer. So your technician, it's back to the teachers. A trick I did is I have post-its in the computer rooms, in some of the computer rooms that I'm in, and I have a diagram of it where I'd go on to Excel, and I would, Excel is a great job, lads, in that I do very little calculating using Excel. But I'll go and I'll draw my room like that, and I'll turn around and I'll say there's a computer here, call 1, there's a computer here, call 2, there's a computer 3, 4, and so on. And then the other side of the room is 5, 6, 7, and 8. Does anybody see the box tool thing around? Oh, wait, there it is. See it? So I'm going to go up here, draw a border around that. So there's my room. I have one of these printed off in every computer room. So it's just printed off, just a rough diagram of the room. It's on the computer room desk. Teacher goes in, an issue is reported. They just go X, pick up their phone, take a picture of it, email the technician. Okay? Problem, reported, done, dealt with, move on, teach a lesson. You know, that's the only way. Because if you start thinking about categorizing that problem and reporting it correctly, you'll just get swallowed up. So my attitude on everything is keep it simple. The problem is issues not being reported. That's a quick way to report issues. Okay. You can now also ask the teacher to put their name at the bottom of the sheet. And when they take a picture and send it to the technician, when the technician comes to the school, they make their way to that teacher and they say, you have a problem here. What was that problem again? Because an awful lot of the time when I approach a school, I'll go down and I'll get a it's just like, you love writing, lads. You get an essay of the problem and the day that was in it and the amount of students, and then I kind of go, the problem is there was no network, but the network is up and running. Was there any other problem? And there's no fault attached. It's just sometimes computers work and they need to be switched off and turned back on again. That's just the way it is. But I found this to be a quick fix for reporting issues. Anybody else? You want to just fire a problem? Yeah, go ahead.
Professional responsibility is a huge thing. You can't make it simple enough and time enough for teachers. I would put seating plans in front of them and they won't just put initials for kids on that. You'll get some people will do it religiously and you get more people who say, you know, but you can't make it simple enough. The technician thing, if you put the kids over, everyone has Gmail accounts, messages in their own time. We can then fire off to a technician or to, take the school company and then get to
for reporting issues, and this applies to the primary schools as well. Primary schools and secondary schools, in my opinion, are completely different animals, but the reporting issue is the same. So everybody has a problem with the computer, that's how you report it. In the secondary schools, when you log in, this here, you ask your technician, you might want to write this down if you don't, if you have a server in place. You ask your technician, do we have mandatory profiles? Okay? And if they say yes, mandatory profiles means when Hassan logs in, he's dealt a particular set of files, depending on where Hassan is sitting, but he always have files that follow him around. So you say, and again, this is your computational thinking, coding idea, your technician will write a piece of code that says, when Hassan logs in, give him a particular shortcut. So there's always, every time a teacher logs into a computer, there's always a shortcut that says issue reporting or report issue or whatever. And that's another way, and you attach Google Forms, and that's another way of reporting issues to your technicians. But I'm afraid, I'd love to say there's a quick fix. Computers, there's two things we're sure of in life. The sun will rise and computers will let you down. They always will. It's what they do. I'm here today to try and eliminate some of them issues, or at least help you report them. Now, I'm going to move on now because time is not a friend. When you take what you've learned today and you want to apply it to your school, I've read through some of the submissions, and all of them. I've read through all of them. Some of them are really, really detailed. Others, not as detailed, but the important stuff is mentioned. Okay? Knowing your environment, I cannot emphasize this enough. Knowing your environment is the most important thing you can ever do. Go around, know what computers you have, what computers you don't have. So, back to the computational thinking idea. I want to this is the discussion, right? There's no right or wrong answer on this. So if you have, right, 20 students, and you want to do your coding, we'll just put it up here. It can be anything, whether it's App Inventor or Scratch or whatever. Your environment determines what you can use effectively. So with this situation, you have 5 computers which are on the internet, so with internet. You have 5 computers not on the internet. And can you tell me, with that, and this is a summary of everybody's submission. There's a rough idea. This is a rough view of everything that I've read. Can you tell me how or what are the best programs to use coding if this is your environment? So 20 students, 5 computers connected, 5 computers not connected. We'll just assume they're all in the same room. Okay, I was going to say discuss it between you. So just, but that's fine. If you want to start throwing stuff up now, are you happy? Are you confident enough? Cool. So this is your environment. 10 computers. Go. Throw some stuff up. You all gone awful quiet all of a sudden. What programs will I use?
Students paying PCs to do more in pairs offline.
Okay. And anybody else? So we mentioned Scratch. Which one? CS? All right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Nice.
If that's a temporary problem or if that's the permanent issue.
Do you know what? This is a strange. Is it? That's a really good question because I work in about 40 different schools, and this you could have, and you won't go online for whatever reason, just Windows being stupid and technology being stupid. So I always give this example. So you have to be able to go, well, okay, do I need them to be online? This is about using the environment. So if you want to take Scratch, or if you want to do your microbit, you need to be online for microbit. Yes? No? How do you download it online? Somebody's submission said the ideal solution will be for students to bring in their own devices or their own devices. They're using AppMaker, but it goes against school policy. I don't know if I want my kids at primary school bringing in mobile phones, even 6th class. I'd prefer it. I'm a bit like that. And I'm just the technician. Like if I was the teacher, I'd be freaked out altogether. Like 6th class student arrived in with a mobile phone. I wouldn't know how to deal with it. So I'd kind of be going, I'm all about the controlled environment, by the way. So I say bring in your devices, bring in your iPads, bring it all in. As long as we're in this room and we can only connect between 10 and half. Now I know that that doesn't happen in the real world, but myself as a technician, I think that's the only way to control devices in a school. So 5 computers connected to the internet, you can use Scratch online, or 5 computers connected to the internet, you can use Scratch offline. So if you can have 10 students working in the one computer room. 5 using online version of Scratch, 5 using offline version of Scratch. The best solution is why are you putting them in front of computers? Like, why? Figure out the code, the plan, bring them into the computer room, don't put them in front of you. Figure out your coding and your computational thinking. Figure it out on paper and on whiteboard. These things are great. My house has 4 of them in my office, because you just get a marker, I'll have an idea, I'll run upstairs and I'll knock it out here before I'll ever sit in front of a computer. So the essence of coding and what you're learning here, okay, is, if I was to take something out of it, out of today in particular, is you don't have to sit in front of a computer to do coding or computational thinking. So don't panic when you go back to your school. The next thing I'm here to talk to you about is when you do arrive into your school and you do want to implement it. So you need to decide a few things, and you can take these down if you want. You need to decide, do I have to download my software? Okay. Do I need permission to download the software? Will the software work on the computers available? People think they're daft sort of questions, and in a kind of way, they are daft sort of questions, but in deployment, you have to do it. You have to go to a board, or a sheet of paper, or in my case, my faithful black book. I'm a technologist, but I still carry a notebook around in a bag. So you need to decide these things. You need to know your environment. Now, the one thing with all of your submissions, and I noticed they're all, like, the details are there, and there's talk of ping and speed and the speed of my internet and what have you. The speed of the internet is damn all good to anybody, lads, let me tell you, if you're doing coding, unless you're doing coding online. But then it's nothing to do with the coding, it's to do with how many people are online at the same time. So the question then becomes, okay, if I'm doing Scratch online, how about I split my classroom, some online, some offline? So not everybody is online at the same time. So that has to come into your prep plan. And again, that's part of your lesson, your scheme of work. Your teachers, your educators, you love planning stuff, but the only thing that isn't mentioned, well, you might love it, but you have to do it. Sorry, I correct myself. The only thing that hasn't been mentioned on all of the submissions is, how long will it take me to set a room up? And that's the only thing. You covered everything else, lads. There's somebody, and I don't think I even wrote down the name because I was afraid I'd mention it here, but there's somebody that went and measured the ping in every single room and put it in an Excel sheet. That's amazing stuff, lads. But as far as your environment is concerned, it's not really, I would class, more important than knowing the internet speed of the room is knowing whether you can install something on your computer. If I have permission to install it, how long will it take me to install it? If I install it, will something else fall over? And the software that I want to install, that I want to do my coding, will that work on my computer? There's an assumption that because I did it today and I have all my microbits and my emulators and stuff, that all of that's going to work when I go to school. So some of it won't. So how do you get it to work? And how long will it take you to get it to work? Does anybody have any questions so far? Just about deployment, because it's not that it's going to get heavier or I'm going to go deeper into. This is a heavy topic, but if you don't get it right, it doesn't matter what you learn here. Because if you can't effectively deploy it, then your coding isn't going to work. And that's the negative. That's the negativity everybody feels when it comes to IT. It's not the computer's problem. It's the fact that we sit down in front of a computer and we go, nobody planned this. How are we landed with 4 to 7 computers and not one of them will turn on? Who planned this idea? So when it comes to coding and your deployment, decide, What's the software? Can I install it on my computer? Do I have permission to install it on my computer? Does it require the internet? And will it make other stuff fall over? Does anybody know the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit? Just change it up a bit. It's okay if you don't, by the way. Bus speeds, okay. Anybody? Okay. 32-bit, because coders are amazing in every way. When they created a processor, there was an 86-speed processor, right? And this is the only really boring stuff, so bear with me for 2 seconds. It's an 86-bit processor that was invented years ago, and it processes at an 86 speed. The 86-speed processor is actually a 32-bit processor. Don't ask me why, I don't know why, I don't care, but 86 is equal to 32. Stuff that works on a 32-bit processor won't work on a 64-bit processor. Okay? So the three things we have to remember. 86, old, bad. 86 is equal to 32. 64 doesn't work on 32. 32 might work. 32 will work on 64, won't work on 32. Okay? The reason I say that, and write those down, please, is 32-bit and 64-bit. The reason I say write that down is because I was downloading Python for one of my schools, and one of the questions it asked on download is your machine a 32-bit or a 64-bit machine? And I kind of went, I don't know. Does anybody know how to check their machine if it's a 32-bit or a 64-bit? It's okay if you don't. Right, I'll try it on this machine here. Systems. Right. If you have Windows, who has Windows 7, we'll say? Windows 7, mostly Windows 7, Windows XP, and Windows 10. Right, so on your desktop, go down to the bottom, see your little folder. In your little folder, you have machines, called my computer. On Windows 10 machines, it's called this PC. And you just right click on here, and you go down to properties, and you go, it'll give you all the properties of that machine, and you're looking out for 64-bit operating system. And it's a quick check. Right? So when you go and you learn and you take your microbits or other connected devices and it requires software, it'll ask you, do you want the 60, less and less it's happening now, but you will get an occasion where it'll say, do you want 64-bit or 32-bit? If your machines are 64-bit, download the 64-bit. If it says 32-bit in brackets and it doesn't give you an option, download anyway, but don't be guaranteed it's going to work. And this is key. Don't be guaranteed it's going to work. That means all the work you've put into planning your deployment and your scheme of work has all of a sudden gone out the window in that it's going to take me another day, have to talk to the technician, have to get permission to download the stuff, and you know the way these things ball out of control. Does everybody understand that? Yeah. That's about as technical as I'm going to get. I'm not going to go up much more than that. For you, yeah.
I'm putting that onto a number of different machines. They're either 32 and 64. I may as well after sit down with 32 and go after every
Kind of, yeah. That'd be the computational approach, computational thinking approach. What will work? What will one device work on all of them, as opposed to mixing and matching? You'll find that your 32-bit software. Can I just repeat that to everybody? Or will you repeat that to everybody?
I was just asking if I have a mix of 32-bit and 64-bit. Could I just download the one file for 32-bit and install that into every system?
That's a really good question, because if you download the 32-bit, which we know works on all of them, you will get prompted after a while, your software is out of date, run the update. So it depends on how quick you want to deploy. if I was to go into a school and a teacher says to me, I have 30 computers, I need to put on whatever, Python, whatever, onto my computers, and I have an hour to do it, I'll do your approach straight away. If it's my school, then I'll take a step back and I'll do the invisible thing. I'll wait till everybody's gone home, and this is my next bit that I want to talk to you about. I'll bring in my IT team, and we pick which goes where. Our little diagram that I mentioned, I have a copy of that. That is photocopied 6 or 7 times in a folder, in a magic binder that lives on a shelf. And I'll go to Python, I'll open it up, and it'll show me which has 32-bit, which has 64-bit. So when the update comes, you know that you have to update it. But that takes time. So I've added, again, remember your submissions. By doing it this way, by doing it my way, I've added 2 hours to your deployment. By doing it the quick way with the 32-bit, your deployment will happen, but you know well what will happen in 3 weeks or in 3 months. A teacher is going to come to you going, none of that, the PC down there doesn't work and the software isn't working. And you panic, and you tell your technician, software isn't working. The technician goes, is it an internet connection? Is it the Windows needs an update? Is it the software that needs an update? So by knowing your environment, you know you open up Python isn't working, you open up Python, computer number 16, that's running 32-bit Python, okay, that needs to be updated. Is that okay? We fine with that? I'm going to move on to the IT team. This works for primary schools as well as secondary schools. So if you have a group, if you have a computer room and you have PCs all the way down and you need to install, what was I doing recently, Python on all of them. You can come in at, and again this is knowing your environment, I know that each of these PCs is Windows 7 Pro. I know that if I'm using, I know that they're all connected to the internet. And they're all connected to a NAS drive. Now, does everybody know what a NAS drive is? NAS, technicians love speaking in many words, frankly. It's a network attached storage. So it's a hard drive that sits on your network that everybody can see. For the secondary schools, I think there's a general consensus now that the guys call it shared drives. So they call it teacher share and student share. There's also a hidden folder in there that nobody ever told you about called software. And if there isn't, then their technicians aren't worth talking about. That's for the secondary school people. For the primary school people, a NAS drive, chances are where your internet comes into your building, you have a big box, a network router. Your NAS drive, chances are it lives up there. And all it is a hard drive that lives in that cabinet. And that hard drive is accessible by anybody who connects to the internet. So when you go to my computer, you will see, I don't know if it'll happen here. Oh yeah, here. See these drives here? These drives, P and this one here, are not on that computer. These drives are somewhere else. That cave that's down there, a couple of doors down, that's where these drives live. So, back to the USB key and installing the software on my computers. You've learned a huge amount of stuff here over the last while. Now you want to deploy it. The thing I didn't mention up here of knowing my environment is I'm going to take my Python or we'll just say Scratch, and I'm going to install it on this computer only. So I'm going to sit down at 12 o'clock and I'm going to install Scratch. I'm going to log into that computer at 12 o'clock and I'm going to install Scratch. Now, when I download Scratch, I'm not going to put it on that computer. I'm not going to put it on a memory key. I'm going to put it into the NAS drive. Okay, so your lives on your NAS drive. Now, there's a couple of faces looking at me going, what's an installer? Don't worry about the terminology. The downloads folder on your computer, that file is going to be in there, all packaged up for you. That's called an installer. And in fact, try it when you go home this evening. If we look for, as some of the security work I do, when I open up a laptop, the first place I'll go is into downloads, and I'll see what was downloaded onto that computer. So everything you download automatically gets shipped to my downloads. So all you do is you take it out of the downloads folder and you put it into your NAS drive. So at this stage,
Sorry, Stan,
yeah.
This is when you download your software, you're normally given an option to run or save it.
Sorry, the save.
You
Yeah.
should say the save button instead
Yes.
of run now.
Sorry, I actually skipped over that. Yeah, when the first warning that comes up, if it's not, you're not an administrator, will be, do you want to run it or do you want to save it? And when you run it, it'll say, do you want to run it from your current location or do you want to save it? If it runs it from its current location, it'll run it from the downloads folder. If you press save, it'll just save it to the downloads folder. But then after it has it saved, it'll say, do you want to now run it? So you're guaranteeing that it's saving it into the NAS folder. I'm going somewhere with this, bear with me. So once it's in here, you click run. It installs onto this computer. Then you test it. Don't forget to test your software. Don't go, oh yeah, it's working. Because what are we sure of? Sunrise and technology will let you down. So don't trust the computer. So test it. It works. Great. Now it's 12:15. Assuming that your internet is working and your computer is working. Now as far as your deployment is concerned, it takes you 15 minutes to install one piece of software. So that's a half an hour. That's another half an hour. Half an hour. That's a lot of half hours. So your submissions are great, but this is the most important bit. How long will it take me to install this? And knowing this eliminates the negativity towards technology. It eliminates it by, you know that it's going to take 15 minutes. And it eliminates it because you're making sure that this piece of software is on all of these. Now, my trick for today, and your takeaway from this, you can manually install it by going 15 minutes, or going half an hour, half an hour, half an hour, and it's going to take 4 hours or 8 hours to install. Or you can bring in your tech team. Bring in your tech team. The 6th class are great at this because they love installing stuff for the primary guys. Some 5th class guys do as well. Some 3rd class, not so much, but you do get an occasional helpful student. For the secondary school, your TYs, depending on what the TYs are doing, you can incorporate it in your deployment. So you get them to go, first of all, for the secondary, for the primary, you get your 6th class in, you sit them in front of every single computer, you make sure every single computer can see the NAS drive. Remember when I said save your file onto your NAS drive? If every computer can see the NAS drive, then every computer can install from the NAS drive. So you sit down, all your students, and you say, Grant, go to here, click install. Wait for it to finish, test the software. So you've taken your half an hour and half an hour, and you've divided that time across the board by bringing in a team of IT people. You can do the same with USB keys.
I just want you to have a copy of it kept because there's always that one student.
Yeah, there is. But there is. The great thing about this, and the cute trick about downloads, is if you're saving it somewhere and you copy it, you're already. What I would tend to do for your primary guys is put it on a USB key. Always keep a USB key with all your software on it. Your new technician will thank you for it long term. Because when you buy a new computer, and I'm going to show you another piece of software here that's kind of cool as well. Your technician will come to your school with a brand new computer and he'll go, there you go, there's the computer, what do you want me to install on it? And you're going to take out the magic USB key that you created because you downloaded all your software and you go, install all of that on that computer. Don't come back to me till it's done. And that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be a case of what software is on that computer, what software is on that computer. You need to know your environment. And if you think about it logically, it makes sense. So I know that all of my computers must have Microsoft Office on it. All of my computers must have whatever your coding software is. All of my computers must have Scratch or Python or whatever you're doing. And you put all your software. So, I can't emphasize that. Yeah.
About machine.
The one location, yeah.
And then you get it to roll on the stage. And now, if you say that you were saying it saves to downloads, would you get the option to save it to this NAS drive to the?
You will. Do you know what? Let's revisit that again for everybody. Okay, and I'll take you through the 1, 2, 3 of the download process. Okay, so if you want to take this down, that's great, and this will apply to any computer, anywhere. So, step 1 is click download. When your software comes down, you're going to be asked, do I want to save or run? And I'm paraphrasing, there's a bunch more stuff attached to it. Save to current location or run from current location. Sorry, save or run from current location. When you click save, it's going to ask you here, where do you want to save it to? Just like Word. You know when you click Save As? It'll open up a thing. So you tell it, save to, remember, our NAS drive, or wherever is a shared location. So I'm going to say NAS drive, or I'm going to call it a share, which are two more common things. At primary schools, it's a NAS drive. Secondary schools, it's a shared drive. When it's downloaded to here, it's going to then ask you, do you want to run? So just for the technical side of it, it downloads, save or run, save to NAS drive or share drive. It downloads the little installer, which is, chances are it'll look like a box icon-wise. And then when it runs it from its current location, which is from the share drive. Does everybody have that? Because honest to God, if I didn't say another thing today, this is key. So these steps here are going to cut your time, and they're going to save you time. Time is the important thing. So, yeah, you ask away.
For all the students, and I have administrative rights and go into, and go into that. So I would put it onto the, it would go onto the server, or I would put it onto a machine. Okay,
do you know what? The answer to that is longer than I have left, which is why I checked the time. It wasn't that, sorry for being rude. So I'll link in with you before we finish. And the company I have is called Simple IT Solutions. And the reason I call it Simple IT Solutions is because I simplify everything to eliminate terminology and the stuff that's causing us problems. So try and remember these steps and try not to trip over the server. Is it on? It's not on. Server is the most commonly and misused. So don't let the terminology bog you down. As long as you have it, share or your NAS. Okay? So, it's now in your shared location. You bring in your team, your IT people, your team of ninjas, if they're in primary school, and you say, right, I want you to go to this location and install this piece of software and test it out for me. If they accidentally delete it, that's fine. But a good point was made. Why don't you, when it's saved to here, why don't you also save it to a USB key? Just in case. It always makes sense. But chances are, if you do the 2 steps, if you save or run, you can save it into a downloads folder. You can also save it. So the important thing is you save it into a shared location. I can't emphasize that enough. Shared location. You bring in your team of ninjas and you get them to install the software. If it doesn't work the first time, for secondary school people, at this stage, your team of ninjas, by God, do they know how to break stuff. They're teenagers, and their brains are wired up differently. So they will hit delete faster than you have any control over them. So you bring your ninjas in, and you put it, this here, when you go to save and to share, you put it into a share that they all have access to. Put it into their student share for the secondary school people. Once it's in their student share, they can run it from there. Okay. But it has to be put into student share. The next logical question is when it's in student share, but students can't install software. They can if you're cute about it, and to steal Pan's phrase, if you box clever. So if you create an account, and every server, I bet you, sorry I used, every domain controller has a file or an account called software, and chances are the password is teach by or, because all technicians read from the same manual. This and this. Do you know when you're sitting at a computer and the computer fires up a warning and it says, we need to update something because something needs to be updated, you're not an administrator, give me a username and password? An account like this should be set up so a teacher can just put in software and then teach 5R, and the software comes down onto that computer. That account is only created to download software. So, you have your team of students. The first thing you do, you know what software you want. You've downloaded it onto that computer. Chances are that computer is a teacher computer. You then create an account, or you ask your IT people, can you please create an account for me? Call it software, and give the password something, the year or something. Okay? You bring in your ninjas, you sit them down. I don't know how you trust your students or you don't trust your students, but you don't want to be bringing in the one student that's broken the computer every single time. So bring in some trustworthy students. Guys, this is a position of trust. You're giving them this username and password. This username and password, they log in using it. When they log in using that, they're all sitting at computers. They will all install the software that's sitting in the student share. And what happens is you've eliminated your half hour by getting them all to install it at the same time. And you're telling them then, check the software, make sure it works. That's just a secondary situation. When all your ninjas leave, you change this password, because it allows students to install stuff. Does that make sense? Are we happy enough with that? Any questions? Did I lose half of the room? Say yes, it's okay if I have. It's grand. This is about knowing your environment. You're not meant to understand it, walking, able to think about it. Computational thinking applies to knowing your environment. I can't emphasize that enough. The little question I gave you earlier on, 20 students, 5 online, 5 offline. Who do I connect? How do I deploy it? This is fine for secondary school. For primary school, the easiest thing in the world when it comes to deploying software is you pick one laptop that students use, you put all your software on a USB key, and you run that software on that laptop. Is that okay? I want to show you, I'm going to finish up with this. There's a website I use called Ninite. Does anybody know what that is? It's okay if you don't. Ninite is what every technician uses. And if they say they don't use it, they're lying to you. Again, we're all reading from the same hymn book. Ninite is a piece of software. So how many times, let me put it into a real life scenario. You get a computer into school, and now it's your job, because you're the IT people, right, I need to put all the software on this. So your day is gone, because now you have to download it, and you need to download the correct update, and you need to make sure that the laptop connects to the internet, and it's a nightmare. Wouldn't it be handy if all your software lived in one place, and you pushed one button, and all of the software installed? That's what Ninite does. Okay? So, you get your brand new computer. What I tend to do, and this is a very personal thing for me in my schools, for the schools that hire me as they need me, let's just be honest, if you're getting charged per hour, or if you're charging per hour, you need to do the job quick, and if you don't do the job quick, you're not going to get paid, because people think you just pull the pace. So I use Ninite. For my contract schools, when a new computer comes into me, the first thing I do is I delete all software on it and I start from scratch. I understand that you guys can't do that. So this here, you choose what apps you want to install. So every computer should have Chrome, every computer should have Firefox. And in fact, because it's an interactive board, we can do stuff, can we? No.
It's turned off, sorry.
It's not turned off, it's not calibrated. So, stop pushing the button. So you go to Chrome, we need Chrome. You tick on Firefox, we need Firefox. You go down here to Security Essentials. For your primary schools, guys that wouldn't have a group license, you can install AVG, Avast, whatever your chosen poison is. You install your antivirus. You go to Developer Tools. This one is a nice one. If I move it out, I don't know if you can actually see that because it's small anyway. Your Developer Tools are kind of cool, because you can install Python, FileZilla, Notepad, Putty. I don't know if you would have covered Putty, but Python anyway. You go back to your utilities. You choose what utilities you want to install. So I'm just going to pick TeamViewer because I want to log on remotely to a computer. I'm going to go to Media. I'm going to choose VLC. Audacity because I use Audacity in my classroom. Spotify because I put on music when they're trying to figure stuff out. Runtimes, Java. If you're running coding, guys, you're going to need your runtime. So you're going to need Java, you're going to need Air, you're going to need Shockwave. Storage, online storage. Some of you use Dropbox, others don't. Some of you put Dropbox onto laptops. Imaging software, I install GIMP. It's unfortunately named, but every school uses it. I don't install any of that. Documents, OpenOffice. If you haven't paid for Microsoft Office, OpenOffice is another good one. Or LibreOffice, OpenOffice. Evernote then, or Stream or Google Earth. Now, when I click all the ones I want, what this does is you click on Go to Ninite, and it'll throw a warning at me here. It should throw a warning. Warning is down at the bottom of the screen. Do you want to do Ninite, Air, Audacity, blah, blah, blah. Do I want to run it or do I want to save it? Remember our save option? Okay. Save it to a location you're choosing, a USB key, preferably. Or if you have a share location and you understand how to use it, go to your share location. But I would save it onto a USB key. What this does is it pulls down one installer. That one installer, so I'm going to go save. It shouldn't allow me to do it. So open folder. That's where it's telling me I'm going to save it into downloads, but I'm not going to put it into downloads. I'm going to put it somewhere else. So I'm going to copy it onto my USB key that's connected. I'm going to put it into my share location. Now what this does, and I won't install anything, what this does is it downloads one little file onto your USB key. It's not very big. When your new laptop comes into school, you take that USB key, you plug it into the laptop, and you run that file. And within 5 minutes, all of those selected programs are installed on that laptop. So if you're really smart from a deployment point of view, and I'm going to finish up now, that USB key will contain your 9-ish stuff, will contain Scratch, will contain, what else were we doing here that was downloadable? App Inventor? App Inventor. Python, Notebook++. And that USB key is now your new friend. So when it comes to deployment, when you've taken everything around here and you're going back to your class or your school, you have that USB, you put it into your shared location, or you copy it into your shared location and you run from it, or you go around manually installing it. That USB key is important, and that's what deployment is all about. It's about knowing your environment and making life easier for yourselves. And don't forget, the steps that you've created there, your scheme of work and everything, is step 1 through to, I heard some really cliche thing, 1 through to fun, or something like that. But you're at step 1 now. I'm at step 0. So you need to get this bit sorted. You need to know in order to get to step 1. If you don't do this, you're not going to get to step 1, and you're going to end up with negative feedback. And I'm available for questions throughout the day.
Hassan, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Looking at the submissions from the different people, often it's the same issue when they're questioning whether or not they should be moving towards sort of portable laptops, like on a rack they could bring around from room to room, or iPads they could bring around rather than a dedicated room. And somebody in one of the submissions said that they had tried one of using iPads in the school, it was a disaster and they moved away from it.
Yeah.
Just based on your experience, I know you've worked with a lot of schools, how does that sort of portable IT lab work? Or are there any issues around that as opposed to a dedicated IT lab?
The issue straight away is ownership. People aren't inclined to take ownership of the big trolley. So stuff breaks, it doesn't get reported. But by the end of the year, the trolley falls apart. That's my experience with it. If ownership is assigned to it, there's one school I'm in, and really quickly I'll run through. There's one school that uses iPads in a trolley, but it's easier, to be honest, break into Fort Knox than to get one of those iPads. Those iPads are working swimmingly. But it's the control. There's one teacher, she has ownership of the trolley. That's all. She knows where the trolley is, who has it, who's about to have it, what software, and she does all the updates herself. Now, if you manage it that strictly, then you're going to be fine. If you relate it back to a computer room is easier managed than it is manage a trolley, because a computer room tends to require or give assumed ownership. So when a teacher is in a computer room, the assumption is I must look after these computers. With the trolley, it tends to be forgotten, or we might send a student for a trolley and the trolley gets dragged down the steps. I saw it, dragged down the steps. 27 grand being pulled down steps. Is it the teacher's fault? No, because the teacher sent the student. Is it the person who released the iPad's fault? No, because they're meant to release the iPads. Is it the student's fault? No, because they're teenagers. So how does that get reported? And only for the fact that I saw it, I wouldn't have known that that had ever happened. Now, as it happens, only one of the iPads broke. But that's the kind of the difference between managing a computer room and managing a trolley. Nobody will ever drag a computer room down some steps.
That's one question.
Yeah.
No installing Would you recommend the computer left on throughout the full day regardless of the time being used? Because the problem I have is that the first thing is that they go and turn them on and they have to wait, students have to wait, and they don't get done what they want to get done. So what's a recommendation if you were to be on for what next time during the day? Just do your own thing.
First of all, computers won't install updates by themselves. No matter what anybody tells you, they won't. So you may have your computer set to automatically install updates, but you can be sure you're going to get your bulk of updates 12 o'clock on a 12 o'clock on a Wednesday, because there's a thing called Update Tuesday, where Microsoft sends all its updates to all its computers, whether it's a small device or a big device. The best thing you can do is with your ninjas is preempt the installing. So on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock or 3:30, or if you can at 2 o'clock, you send around your group of students or your group of ninjas and you tell them, run software updates, run software updates, run software updates.
So they don't run updates if something's logged down?
Yeah.
So could I leave them logged down on Tuesday or Wednesday night?
You can, yeah, you can. There's two different ways. In one particular school that they don't have time, I would do it remotely myself. So I log on to the computer at home. I log on to the computers at home, and I literally turn on every single computer remotely, and I go install updates, install updates, install updates, install updates. And that way I'm guaranteed that a random update isn't going to get pushed down. Okay. The other way of doing it is with your team of ninjas. The team of ninjas is important, lads. Is you do it manually. You turn it on. You have. It doesn't matter. You can't beat the updates. Don't try. You're fighting a losing war if you're trying to beat the updates.
Can you not set a time for the machine to update itself?
You can, but it won't always work. And I know that from experience. That it won't always work. It's your technician would do it. Your server people would do it.
So, but you can schedule your updates to happen at a certain time.
Yes, you can.
That's actually a big problem. Even here, say you come to log on, when the machine is back on, and next thing they're spending 15 minutes installing updates, and you've got half an hour left for class.
I would say, guys, when it comes to updates, the only thing to do is preempt it. So you know there's a bulk of updates happening on a Tuesday. You run your updates on Wednesday when the school day is over. Run the updates, get them. The thing is, an important thing to remember about updates is updates aren't fully installed until the computer power cycles. But the power cycle is the daftest power cycle in the world, in that you install updates, it says restart computer, your computer turns on, the updates still aren't installed. You then have to restart the computer again. Yeah. So one, download updates. It says restart the computer. Computer comes up again. When the computer comes up again, then restart the computer. There, your cycle is here, not here. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, restart and I'll walk away and come back in tomorrow and it'll be fine. No, the problems you're all meeting is where people doing it that way. Because you come in and you know where Windows 10 turns around and says, hi, you've just installed updates. You can forget what you asked, because that's going to take 50 minutes to run. So remember, restart, upload, do it again.
So it only happens when you power on the machine. So if someone said there, if the machine's on,
no, it'll happen. If it's a security update,
it just happens itself.
yeah. Windows will turn around and Windows will be told this is an important security update. The world may end if you don't install it, and it will go, the humans don't have a clue, I'm going to do it.
That's also our issue. That's our issue, Stephen Mann.
I would recommend powering off your PC at least once a term, once a week.
No. Just like at Friday, leave them on Monday to Friday.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd prefer if you install up, because updates come down. There's two. Oh, sure.
On the computer and Windows is updating.
Yeah.
So you're selected.
I'm here for the day, so I'll talk to you later on.